The Austin 7 is an economy car that was produced from 1922 until 1939 in the United Kingdom by Austin. Nicknamed the Baby Austin, it was one of the most popular cars ever produced for the British market, and sold well abroad. It wiped out most other British small cars and cycle cars of the early 1920s. Its effect on the British market was similar to that of the Model T Ford in the US. It was also licensed and copied by companies all over the world. The very first BMW car, the BMW XC, was a licensed Austin 7, as with the original American Austins. In France they were made and sold as Rosengarts. In Japan Nissan also used the 7 design as the basis for their first cars, although not under license. Many Austin 7s were rebuilt as specials after the Second World War, including the first race car built by Bruce McLaren, and the first Lotus, the Mk1. Such was the power of the Austin 7 name that the company reused it for early versions of the A30 in 1951 and Mini in 1959. History. Until the First World War Austin built mainly large cars, but in 1909 they sold a single-cylinder small car built by Swift of Coventry called the Austin 7 horsepower. After this they returned to bigger cars. In 1920 Sir Herbert Austin commenced working on the concept of a smaller car, mainly to meet the needs of young families aspiring to own an affordable motor car. This idea was spurred on by the introduction of the horsepower tax in 1921. His design concept marked a departure from his company's conservative motoring past, and Austin received considerable opposition from his board of directors and creditors. Because the company was in receivership, Austin decided to carry out the project himself on his own account and in 1921 hired an 18-year-old draftsman, Stanley Edge, from the Austin factory at Longbridge, Birmingham to aid in the drawing of detailed plans. This work was carried out in the billiard room of Austin's Lickey Grange home. Edge convinced Austin to use a small 4-cylinder engine. The original side-valve engine design featured a capacity of 696 cc's giving a RAC rating of 7.2 horsepower. The cast cylinder block featured a detachable head and was mounted on an aluminium crankcase. The crankshaft used 1 roller and 2 ball bearings, and the big ends were splash lubricated. Edge also carried out the design of other mechanical components such as the 3-speed gearbox and clutch assembly. Austin was largely responsible for styling the 7's design, which was reportedly influenced by the design of the Peugeot Quadrillette. The A-frame chassis design was believed to have been influenced by the design of an American truck used in the Longbridge factory in the early 1920s. The design was completed in 1922 and 3 prototypes were constructed in a special area of the Longbridge factory, and announced to the public in July 1922. Austin had put a large amount of his own money into the design and patented many of its innovations in his own name. In return for his investment he was paid a royalty of 2 guineas, on every car sold. Nearly 2,500 cars were made in the first year of production, not as many as hoped, but within a few years the big car in miniature had wiped out the cycle car industry and transformed the fortunes of the Austin Motor Company. By 1939, when production finally ended, 290,000 cars and vans had been made. Chassis. The Austin 7 was considerably smaller than the Ford Model T. The wheelbase was only 6 feet 3 inches, and the track only 40 inches. Equally it was lighter, less than half the Ford's weight at 794 pounds. The engine required for adequate performance was therefore equally reduced, and the 747 cc SID valve was quite capable with a modest 10 horsepower output. The chassis took the form of an A with the engine mounted between the channel sections at the narrow front end. The rear suspension was by quarter-elliptic springs cantilevered from the rear of the chassis, while at the front the beam axle had a centrally mounted half-elliptic transverse spring. Early cars did not have any shock absorbers. Brakes were on all wheels, but at first the front brakes were operated by the handbrake and the rear by the foot brake, becoming fully coupled in 1930. In late 1931 the chassis was lengthened by 6 inches with a corresponding increase in the rear track. Steering is by worm and wheel mechanism. Engine and transmission. The original 1922 four-cylinder Austin 7 engine had a bore of 2.125 inches and stroke of 3, giving a capacity of 696 cc's and RAC rating of 7.2 horsepower. From March 1923 the bore was increased to 2.2 inches giving 747 cc's and 10.5 horsepower. The side valve engine was composed of an aluminium crankcase, cast iron cylinder block and cast iron cylinder head. Cooling was by thermosiphon, without a water pump, and the dynamo was driven from the timing gears. The big end bearings were lubricated by jets from an oil gallery in the crankcase, the oil striking the crankshaft webs which were drilled accordingly. Originally the general diameter was 1.125 inches. This was later increased to 1.3125 inches. The three-bearing engine used a white metal center bearing. The splash-lubricated crankshaft at first ran in two bearings changing to three in 1936. An electric starter was fitted from November 1923. The early cars used magneto-ignition, but this was changed to coil in 1928. The three-speed and reverse gearbox was integral with the engine, and had a variety of ratios depending on application. A four-speed gearbox was introduced in 1932 and in 1933 synchromesh was added to third and top ratios extending to second gear in 1934. The back axle was of spiral bevel type with ratios between 4.41 and 5.61. A short torque tube ran forward from the differential housing to a bearing and bracket on the rear axle cross member. Reliant used a derivative of the Austin 7 engine for their early three-wheelers, before developing an aluminium alloy engine. Gordon, England. Herbert Austin's son-in-law, Arthur Waite, soon began to achieve remarkable sporting successes beginning at Brooklands in March 1923 and the next month at Monza. Another driver, E.C. Gordon, England, persuaded Sir Herbert to provide him with a racing 7. Waite and Lew Kings then experienced a run of failure brought about by inadequate engine lubrication for racing conditions. Meanwhile Gordon, England, flushed with success from establishing 6 new class records at Brooklands, had built a special lightweight two-seater body weighing just 20 pounds and entered it in the 1100 cc's class for the Junior Car Club 200-mile race at Brooklands in October 1923. There Gordon, England finished in second place and during the race won another 5 class records. So 2 new sports models were offered in January 1924, the Sports and the Brooklands Supersports. The Brooklands Supersports was a replica of Gordon, England's record breaker. Each car was sold with a Brooklands certificate proving a speed of 80 miles 0 chains per hour. By 1925 Gordon, England held 19 750 cc's class records. Austin 7 Saloon first by Gordon, England. The first Austin 7 Saloon was made by racing driver E.C. Gordon, England's coach building company. Gordon, England had been an aircraft designer with the Bristol Aeroplane Company. His little fabric saloon body based on aircraft principles was said to be the smallest closed car in the world. Its body weighed 28 pounds less than the Tourer and at A210 almost double the A112 chassis price. It showed there would be a ready sale for an Austin-made steel-paneled saloon which was introduced in September 1926 at A165. Until fabric bodies fell from fashion in the early 1930s, the Gordon, England Fabric Deluxe Saloon remained in Austin's catalogue at £20 premium over Austin's standard steel saloon. It was accompanied by their two-seater Gordon, England Cup model. Austin 7 Swallow. In 1927, William Leon, co-founder of the Swallow Sidecar Company, saw the commercial potential of producing a rebodied Austin 7. Buying a chassis from dealer Parker's of Bolton, Leon commissioned Swallow's talented employee, coach builder Cyril Holland, to produce a distinctive open tourer, the Austin 7 Swallow. Holland, who joined Swallow in late 1926, had served his apprenticeship with Lanchester and would become chief body engineer. The height of saloon car fashion of the day was to have the back of the body fully rounded. This was called dome-shaped. With its bright two-tone color scheme and a style befitting more expensive cars of the time, together with its low cost, the Swallow proved popular and was followed in 1928 by a saloon version, the Austin 7 Swallow Saloon. Approximately 3,500 bodies of various styles were produced up until 1932, when Leon started making complete cars under the SS brand. Such was the demand for the Austin 7 Swallows that Leon was forced to move in 1928 from Blackpool to new premises in Coventry. It was, in part, the success of the Swallows that laid the foundations of what was to become, by 1945, Jaguar cars. Licensed production, versions of the Austin 7 were made under license by American Austin from 1930, XE in Germany from 1927 and Rosengart in France from 1928. Austin 7s were also manufactured by Nissan, but reports differ as to whether these were built under license or were unlicensed copies. In addition, rolling chassis were exported to Australia to have locally made bodies attached. Australian-bodied Austin 7s. After World War I, the Australian government imposed a tax on imported cars, in an attempt to stimulate the establishment of an Australian motor industry. However, an imported chassis attracted minimal tax, and as a result local coach builders imported factory-built rolling chassis, to which they fitted uniquely Australian-designed bodies. The largest and best-known of these local coach builders was Holden's Motor Body Builders, and in the mid-1920s Holden commenced importing standard production Austin 7 rolling chassis and building Australian-bodied Austin 7 Tourer and Roadster models. The first Australian-bodied Austin 7 sports model was built by New South Wales Motors in 1924, and was known as the Ace. The Wasp was built by the Melbourne Motor Body Company of 149 Little Lonsdale Street, Melbourne in 1927 and William Green of Parramatta Road, Petersham, Sydney in 1929. The Comet was another Australian-bodied sports model, built by Bill Conulte of Sydney between 1933 to 1934. The Meteor sports model was produced by several coach builders from 1928 to 1931, with James Flood of St Kilda Road, Melbourne, Jack Lonza of Adelaide and A. Robinson and Company of 181 Castlereagh Street, Sydney, producing limited numbers with minor variations on the design. Layout. In 2007, during an episode of Top Gear, Jeremy Clarkson and James May studied a number of early car designs and concluded that the Austin 7 was the first mass-market car to be fitted with a conventional control layout, as found on modern cars. Body styles. Tourers saloons cabriolet sports Cooper Copyright S vans References. External links. The Austin 7 Clubs Association details of the various A7 member clubs throughout the UK and the rest of the world. The pre-war Austin 7 Club, the largest club purely for the Austin 7. A7 component spare parts for all models of Austin 7. Austin 7 Special Register, the register for Austin 7 based specials. Gordon, England Register, Autocar retests an Austin 7, Austin 7 races at austinmemories.com, archive.